the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
You are listening to
Mississippi's #1 sports talk show, The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming worldwide live on the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9. The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome in. You can watch the show on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports, youtube.com Out of Bounds Sports. This is ESPN WRKS, 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by the Ribeyes at Kessler Prime and the Renaissance. We want to welcome in Steve Robertson on the Coors Light guest line, Hail State Insider. Mississippi State basketball is, in a downward spiral. Struggling to score the basketball, have for some time under Ben Howland. A lot of people are asking, what is next? They've lost 6 of 8. We welcome in Steve. Steve, if this thing continues to trend the wrong way, what direction does the Mississippi State leadership go, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's the, I guess, the $5, $6, or $7 million question right now. I mean, that's the thing that you think about is, you know, what happens if it's already off the rails, right? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the loss to Vanderbilt, they were a one-win team in the SEC, last in the league, and they came to your gym and beat you by 21. Those are the kinds of losses that get people motivated for change. I'm not talking about the rank and file fan. I'm talking about, you know, people with influence, people that are on the speed dial whenever you need money for basketball projects and things of that nature. And then let's not forget, you know, it hadn't been too long ago, you know, administration's calling around trying to get people to donate money for the renovation of Humphrey Coliseum. So those people are invested in the future of Mississippi State basketball. And so you look at what happened on Saturday, and it's not an isolated incident. I mean, it's just one of those things. We knew this year was going to be a transition year, but we certainly thought by the second half of the league play would be playing our best basketball of the year, but it's been the reverse of that, actually playing worse than they have most of the year. And
on the offensive side, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, Steve. You're looking at, let me give you some numbers. Ole Miss, since Ole Miss, they scored 46, 73, 53. They did drop 90-something against Iowa State, but they're not any good. 45, 75, 80, and 51. That's a lot of inconsistency, and it's too much 55 and under points.
Well, I think they've been consistently inconsistent on offense. I mean, that's the thing you look at, and I guess that's the thing that's really frustrating too. I mean, even for the casual fans of the game, you watch, and it's like that everybody puts you in a press, and they force you to set your setup so high in the front court, and the next thing you know, you're jacking up an ill-advised 3 with 2 seconds to go on the shot clock, and that's the thing I think is really frustrating. There just doesn't seem to be any semblance of offense. They never appear to be setting anything up. They never appear to be having any sets. It's just kind of like, let's go down and wait for the shot clock to wind down and then jack up an ill-advised shot. And the next thing you know, people aren't in position to rebound, and the rebound goes long, and you give up a basket in transition. Now you're down even more. And that's the thing. It's just so frustrating to watch them offensively because there just never seems to be any flow or cohesion in anything they're doing.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds show. So Cohen and the leadership will wait this out, but you don't sound too positive. And then there's the rumors on the buyout. It's somewhere around $5 to $7 million, although that's a pretty big number, right?
Yeah, because, you know, when he made the NCAA tournament, you know, he was, you know, extended and had the raise and all that sort of stuff. And from what I understand, did not get rolled over last year. I would think probably wouldn't get rolled over this year if he's retained. But, you know, I've heard most of the year it's like, you know what? Yeah, I mean, you know, Ben probably gets another year to kind of right the ship and figure this thing out. But when you lose to Vandy by 21 points the way you did, and as you mentioned, you lose 6 of 8. There's 5 games left on the schedule, and you know, you look at it and say, okay, what game will they definitely win? And you can't identify any of them. You say, well, maybe they can beat South Carolina, you know, in Starkville. But you're looking at a losing season, and we thought really a best-case scenario for this team was to finish somewhere around 500 and possibly 500 in the league. That looks to be, you know, a wish and a prayer. But I'm just eager to see what's going to happen. You mentioned John Cohen as a guy that, John's not going to make an emotional decision. He'll wait and look at the season, in its totality. But I know, the guy's getting phone calls. The guy's getting emails. And
sure.
This is not a fan base that enjoys losing basketball, and I don't mean that in the most obvious way. But in the Stansbury years, Mississippi State was regularly competing for the SEC West back when we had things like that. And every single year, it seemed like you're watching the bubble show, and you're waiting to see where State's going to get in or not get in. And we've had so many years the last decade where there was no prayer of getting into the NCAA tournament. And so people have largely grown apathetic, and that's not really who Mississippi State folks are. Basketball has always kind of been a big part of things, but it hadn't been for the last 10 years, which is why if and when there is a change, John's got to get this hire right, because there are a lot of people, there's some pent-up demand about men's basketball, and it hadn't been met in a long time.
Steve Robertson, genespage.com, the Boneyard Podcast, joins us on the Coors Light guest line. Steve, let's move to baseball. What can you tell me about Scotty DeBrule?
DeBrule, yeah, second baseman, transfer from Jacksonville. He was an all-conference performer there, and if I'm not mistaken, he was leading that league in hitting when the season got canceled. But everybody tells me, he is one of those dirtbag type guys that really hustles for everything. And I've had a couple people tell me he's a real irritant as a hitter and a base runner. That he is the guy that just simply finds his way on. He's not a big power hitter or anything like that. He just finds a way. He's a good bunter. He's a hit and run guy. He's a base on balls type guy. He's just a guy, every time you look up, he's been on base 4 or 5 times a game, and then he gets on base and he becomes an irritant to the pitcher. He's out there getting in their head, and he's a guy that can run the bases a little bit. But he's a savvy baseball player and a good get for State. And talking to Cam James here about a week ago, he said that the guy is really, really a hard worker. They spend a lot of time together kind of working those middle infield plays and kind of getting comfortable with where do you want to receive the ball, where do you catch the ball, that sort of stuff. And so I think he's a good addition. And, he was kind of up and down a little bit in the fall, but really got it going towards the end, and expected him to be a big part of things this year.
Okay, who else? People know about Rowdy Jordan, Tanner Allen, Josh Hatcher, and some others. Who else are you looking at going into this first weekend or first few weeks of getting up and running and trying to get a sample size of who could actually be very productive for MSU?
Well, I tell you, it's funny you mentioned that. One of the guys that we were really excited about was Braylon Skinner, and there was a chance that he would play center and Rowdy go back to left field. And then understand now that he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, and that was a guy that potentially was going to be a starter this weekend in the outfield. And so, you certainly hate for that to happen, but then that probably shifts Rowdy back, back to center. And then you probably platoon in left. I would say Cumbus is a guy that's dependent on pitching matchups. You play a little bit out there. And then Brandon Pimentel, that's a guy that people are somewhat familiar with. And, third base is probably one of those spots, and it has been for the last couple of years, kind of finding out who's going to hold down third. You got Clark. Kellen Clark there from Brandon that's right in the mix there. And, Cam James tells me that he reminds him a lot of himself as a guy that's coming in and starting at third and kind of figuring some things out. The speed of the game is something that he's been able to adjust to. But, hitting SEC pitching is something that's it's really a moving target at this point. But, we'll see. But it's going to be the usual suspects, strong nucleus of players for sure.
We'll leave it there. Steve Robertson, the Boneyard Podcast, genespage.com, 247 Sports, and he joined us on the Coors Light guest line. Steve, we'll catch up later in the week. Thanks, man.
See you soon.
Steve Robertson on the Coors Light guest line. The show is brought to you by the New York Strip at Kessler Prime and the Renaissance. Visit KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. Obviously, all these businesses that we're dropping, some of them are not open today and may not even be open tomorrow, but you can Google what all they're doing or find them on Facebook or call, and they'll let you know what is happening. Be careful out there. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good morning. And stay safe and be careful if you do have to get out. We'll have Cole Kubelik at 8:35 on some SEC football. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. A couple of good texts coming up next.